Zombies throughout the decades have come out with many films. Zombie Sins has shown quite a few stinkers, but what amongst the Dead Sea are there floating as pinnacle pieces of cinematic glory? Without a doubt, there are some zombie films that have made a timeless impact on horror, popular culture, and of course the zombie genre as a whole. But I don't want to just measure how good individual films are purely for what they did for all those aforementioned categories, but to treat them as solitary entities, as well as how they stand up as movies that use the zombie motif with its story, characters, and the themes and everything else, and the zombies themselves to their best advantages. So I know you're here for the top 10, so I'm not going to give you a whole spiel, so let's skip the formalities and get into the reanimated fatalities, as today we are discussing the top 10 zombie movies of all time. Before starting this, I have to slap the disclaimer here. It's my video, it's my subjective opinions. This does not impose it on you. Don't take offense. Blah, blah, blah. Any sane person can understand that. So let's start from the bottom of the best and work our ways up. When the topic of comedy coincides with the zombie genre, a large majority of people would more than likely bring up the 2009 film Zombieland, and for good reason, using 4 different characters that worked well off each other in basically what was only them in a large microcosm of a post-apocalyptic zombie-ridden world, making a sane set of rules for zombie survival that blended well with its themes and setting, and of course using the zombie medium as a decent setting for its slapstick comedy with a lot of gore mixed in. While the sequel was disappointing to say the least, the fact that it had to heavily rely on everything the first movie did shows just what a lightning in a bottle experience it was, rekindling the zombie genre for the big screen audience that was mostly being carried by video game content in the late 2000s, focusing on the main cast of the 4 survivors, with other people only being either in flashbacks or Bill Murray. It allowed more room to breathe for the characters and for it to feel like a Zombieland, like it was post-apocalyptic. As for the zombies themselves, they genuinely felt terrifying, but also pretty damn well with what they were depicting. The iconic intro of Zombieland bouncing between rules and different places to the tune of Metallica's For Whom the Bell Tolls. Time marches on as the fat dude gets eaten up to show off the rule of cardio, demonic little zombie girls in dresses getting slung by cars, the market scene where Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson work in tandem with the banjo, with living moments like the hunt for Twinkies, the girl's mistrust leading to multiple gunpoint encounters, and the realization of Tallahassee's dead son for the emotional beats, then when he wipes his tears with some $100 bills. The climactic battle through Pacific Playland with the clown as the final boss, and Tallahassee soloing a horde with just 2 pistols. Shit, blasting Bill Murray in the chest after pretending to be a zombie after hyping him up so much was hilarious and is something that would happen. It retains a healthy balance of gore held by the zombie medium. It uses the post-zombie outbreak world up to a pretty good advantage, making what is basically a road trip movie across the former United States, but with a lot more blood, gore, and, some dark humor thrown in. It can sometimes feel disjointed because this was conceived as a TV show and repurposed into a movie, and at times inane with the survivors' decisions, especially with the 2 girls wanting to go to that damn park. But it all comes together in a memorable feature film and is pretty indicative of the movies that were coming around that time. And you know what? Any movie that has this joke,
I'm in Garland, Texas, and it may look like zombies destroyed it, but that's actually just Garland,
goes right by me because I'm from around that area. It doesn't necessarily excel in the genre, but it is a staple amongst it, and there is a reason why it is remembered so fondly. It's the perfect zombie comedy for Americans. Zombieland gets the bottom of the top at number 10. To transition from one zombie movie co-starring Abigail Breslin to one starring her, we transition from comedy to tragedy, two eponymous sides of the same coin to the film Maggie. While not well known, and with other films within the same period that explored similar themes in the genre, like The Girl with All the Gifts and The Night Eats the World, I feel like Maggie explored the dark, sad, and most importantly, grittier side of what the dead coming back to life from a horrific disease would actually be like. Starring Arnold Schwarzenegger in a completely serious role, going over the themes of loss, acceptance of a loved one's impending death, and not wanting them to become the very monsters that overtook the world. Abigail's titular character, Maggie, developing symptoms, becoming a pariah, and losing basically not only her life, but what was left of it, what was coming to her before she even became an adult. While sometimes I may argue against a zombie film scarcely using the undead, not seeing them that often, this film strikes a healthy balance with the story it is telling, mainly because it's already a plague that has been dealt with. Zombies are just a part of life, so deadites wouldn't be as common, and when they are aptly dealt with, displaying the harsh realities of what happens to the infected as they are hauled off to be executed or put into camps with horrible living conditions before they lose their mind completely and fully become zombies. It fills you with a sense of dread and uneasiness that I feel like many zombie films never really touch on to this degree. It's really just normal life, now mixed with the undead being a part of society. As if Maggie had just gotten another terminal, incurable disease that has been around forever that would have others recoiling away in fear and disgust. How even family and friends can't deal with the zombification process, and how even the person themselves feels hopeless. It's like a coming-of-age movie turned into Coming to Terms, but with zombies in the mix. It's a touching film that I have delved way deeper into in my video, Maggie, the Bitter Reality of a Zombie Apocalypse. Check that out if you want to see my deep dive into that, but it's definitely worth a watch if you're in the mood to get in your feels and maybe even have a cry. It's a hidden gem by all means, and is a unique taste of the zombie flesh. Maggie comes out to number 9. I often bring up how in the early 2000s there was a renaissance for zombies. 2002's 28 Days Later recontextualized what we thought of the zombie, defining what it actually was, and the speed at which they went. 2 years after that did we get not only those infected in actual zombie form, but also as a reimagining of George A. Romero's most iconic film. While both movies are appearing higher up on the list, I feel that Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead from 2004 deserves some time to shine. While taking up the mantle and rebooting the iconic 1977 film was quite an undertaking, the direction it went in actually paid off, rekindling the objective and long stay within the now Crossroads Mall. The movie focuses on being more erratic, bloody, and action-oriented. The chaos of the beginning, starting from the zombified neighbor girl coming in with her face chewed up to bite the husband and all hell breaking loose. Peak cinema. I remember being a 12-year-old just being terrified of this but loving it. Seeing the outbreak break out from Anne's perspective as she ditches her husband and drives around is just awesome, and leads into the intro montage set to Johnny Cash's The Man Comes Around. And it's honestly my favorite intro in all of zombie media. Yes, even more than 28 Weeks Later. The compilation of society worldwide breaking down, news cycles covering the descent of the populace, jolted camera angles of split-second zombie interactions, and of course the CDC and government kicking off the music by telling the scared public that
we don't know
what the threat is. Getting to the mall with this band of survivors and them fighting the undead throughout is a treat. Honestly, a pretty well put together cast of characters to hate, love, and watch develop. Phil Dunphy is fun to see as an asshole that gets his comeuppance, especially after saying, "If I become one of those things, shoot me." The head security guard being an ass looking out for himself only to end up protecting others, and the big cop just being a badass throughout. You know, there's just a whole whole lot of ass of every variety in this movie. It also gives them enough time to breathe within the walls of the mall to expand on them while the undead swarm outside. Playing a Where's Waldo but with a sniper-esque game where they shoot zombies they describe for some messed up humor, doing a bunch of random stuff across the many amenities of the mall, like getting some ass, and while it's wildly made fun of, criticized, and makes people still go, what the fuck? It's still memorable, that zombie baby scene, man. It's ridiculous, but it definitely garners a reaction across all types of people, and leads into the zombies themselves. In my opinion, they are amongst the most terrifying in the genre. The fat redneck woman wheeled in to die is unsettling when she takes her last breath, but her reanimation with her eye, one of them opening up and her slowly rising, is amongst the most terrifying zombies as she comes barreling at you just for her to get poked in the head. The zombies close up are just scary for the fact that even looking at them makes you feel like you'll get infected, especially that one that slams into the window, soaked in blood to an equal or even higher degree than even the rage infected. It feels like a step up from them. The direct conflicts with every zombie are intense. The way the cinematography shoots everything to be darker, everything has the contrast lower, and the jolted camera work when action starts to happen makes the entire experience feel like a nightmare in the best possible way. It's like a long fever dream, and while the second half of the movie kind of peters out for the momentum of the beginning, it still retains decent horrific fun, gore, and death that you would expect from zombie media. The repurposed mall bus is badass, and them leaving the mall, well, don't get me started on that, have a video all about that stupid decision, but their trek to the docks in that bus across the city is awesome. Accidentally having that one girl get chainsawed, the propane explosion, and the ending that kept you invested even through the credits was a nice touch. The decapitated head in the cooler, arriving on the island to get ambushed by zombies, leaving the fate of the survivors unknown. It really added to that nightmarish feeling, especially when Disturbed start playing. It was a horror movie with some dwindling hope at heart. There were still narrative bits that made this movie more than a funny gore fest with decent characters. The girl having to say goodbye to her father, the black dad being in denial over his infected pregnant wife, the cop knowing his brother is dead, and of course Ken Foree from the original Dawn of the Dead having a cameo as a TV priest saying the classic line,
"When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth."
It is chilling. Although blaming the gays, premarital sex, and abortion for the current zombie outbreak, not the best, it's kind of fucked up, but it does seem within the scope of what a televangelist would say about the end of days. Regardless, the scene and the musical score there were great. Hell, Tom Savini even got to cameo as a town sheriff discussing what to do with the dead. The news footage was pretty cool to expand the scope of what was going on. Everything just mixed into a really unforgettable zombie movie that really set itself apart from anything else, and as one of the pillars of modern era zombie media. Zack Snyder did wonders with this remake, but his next venture into the zombie medium, Army of the Dead, was... let's just say my opinions on it are strong in the opposite direction. But Dawn of the Dead 2004 gets to be 8 up. From rebooting Romero to focusing on his only big-budget Hollywood film, we now shift to his 2005 movie, Land of the Dead. A long culmination of what was 37 years of work and world building, George A. Romero finally had the support of Universal and, more importantly, their funding to make anything of his visions come to life. And it certainly paid off in my eyes. While not achieving the same level of iconography or revere that Day, Dawn, and Night had created throughout the ages, Land of the Dead certainly reached its goals of developing the dead, having more gore than ever, and delivering on that social commentary that Romero loved so much in using his ghouls and their world as a vehicle for. In Land of the Dead, it is corporate greed and class disparity. It is a multi-perspective film, seen through the eyes of scavengers looking for supplies and to get away from society, a mercenary working directly under the wealthy upper class and being screwed over, the wealthy themselves benefiting off the labor and death of the lower class, and of course, course, Big Daddy and his zombie brothers and sisters, the rejects of the world finding purpose in their new reanimated life. It's entertaining to see each group navigate their way through the class's township of Fiddler's Green and its surrounding area, with memorable settings like the zombie fight club / strip joint, the high-rise of Fiddler's Green reminiscent of the Monroeville Mall, the slums, and more. But what stands out more than anything was how unique and fresh it made its zombies evolve, building on elements from previous films but not forcing you to watch them to understand. It's been decades of the undead relearning remnants of their former humanity, watching them go from mindless dead distracted by the simplest things like fireworks to becoming a unit with goals and the means to achieve them. Even from the beginning, with the band attempting to play their former instruments as the zombies progressed, to learn to use tools and even weapons. Each zombie had character traits purely based on their apparel and appearance. The athlete girl with huge eyes wielding a baseball bat, the butcher using a meat cleaver to chop a soldier's hand off while carrying a grenade, causing a funny as hell moment. The gore is honestly the pinnacle of anything in the zombie genre. The disconnected head of the priest swiveling out to bite the dude, the silhouette of the Left 4 Dead-like hand being ripped in half, oh god, that still looks so painful, and the belly button piercing being pulled out. Hell, who could forget the skateboard kid getting eaten up by the clown zombie? The zombies learning how to use guns and obliterate the living as they are unaware of the zombies' progression was just honestly badass. John Leguizamo's character wanting to turn to see what it's like on the other side just for his zombie to pin his former boss, the rich asshole, down so that Big Daddy can blow them both up in the most ridiculously cartoony way possible, just cinching all elements that I have spoke about previously together in the end. Is it a perfect zombie movie? No, but it is one of the more fun ones that keeps you engaged, and I argue the comedy it pulls off with its gore is better than anything the Zombieland franchise ever did. And while the message is a bit in your face and preachy, it serves its purpose moderately well. And any reason to make Luigi and Bowser from the 1993 Mario Brothers movie fight again is always a treat. It has many memorable moments that will stick with you, from the comical blood to the river scene of the zombies plunging in and then slowly rising out. It was, in my opinion, Romero's swan song of a big movie, and I can never not recommend it as it achieves the number 7 spot on this list. Going from the serious with some funny moments tones of Romero's culmination into his Hollywood work, to the deviation of his ideas 20 years prior that became a funny movie with serious moments, comes Return of the Living Dead. There is a reason the first of this franchise is so renowned as a cult classic. It's campy, it's dorky, it is a stereotype of 80s culture while still within the 80s and not just some circle jerk of the decade like Stranger Things. Its zombies are ridiculous to the point you would think they are straight out of a Looney Tunes bit. They are straight up goofy in their speech, mannerisms, and means of attacking people. They feel like caricatures of the zombie archetype. For God's sake, the movie was instrumental in the zombie genre that for ages after, people still have their zombies in their own media going. But within the context of this film, it all just perfectly works. Their toonish elements played into how terrifying they were. It made them feel nuanced. It ironically gave them life compared to the stilted ghouls of yesteryear that sometimes displayed human feats. There were some genuinely interesting and intrinsic concepts displayed, with the survivors asking the half-zombie woman wagging her spine like a tail, which, by the way, good use of practical effects, but asking her what it's like to be dead and why they eat the brains of the living, with her bellowing out their reasoning as
the pain of being dead,
as if they were drug addicts getting their next fix and only being fixated on brains, but doing so in some of the most interesting ways possible that zombies had not done up until that point and kind of haven't done since. It played well within the original horror grounds from which the genre began, but going over the top in every regard. Instead of implying it, the film literally has the dead rising from their graves, but taking it all a step further with having the brain-loving dead having actual brains to do some pretty smart and comedic things. The ambulance headlights coming on to reveal the muddy horde of zombies out of nowhere, the zombies calling for more paramedics and cops to continuously ambush them, the entire police force being swarmed and killed only to be a feeding ground for the dead, the first zombie we even see in the movie being the incubated corpse melting to eventually dwell in the basement to be discovered as the horrific Tarman, clunkily walking around biting heads, yelling brains, live brains, more brains! It's fucking dorky, but goddamn is it good. Genuinely, for a monster to just be yelling brains, it's gonna be off-putting regardless. It's gonna make people think it's dumb, or some of them go, damn, this is animalistic, but by the end, it's kinda loses its dorkiness when the half-zombie girl is frantically screaming brains near the end of the movie. Both of these poster child deadites also show off how cool the practical effects are. The Tarman himself being nightmare fuel in its exposed eyes, and skeleton while its head gets home-runned in the same frame. The multiple bites to the head like people are made of wet clay, it's dorky, but man is it good. The dead paramedics' heads being scooped out by zombies, the limbless Zombo running around without any legs, it is genuinely fun and adds to the charm, especially in the medical supply company when all of the dead bodies awaken, even the animals, seeing the split dog bark and attempt to move around while its entire body is exposed, the butterfly displays having them all flapping around in the foreground, the freezer zombie getting its head knocked off to run around like a headless chicken while its impaled head is squirming. The practical effects can be cheesy, but oh so great. It lends into the film's greatest equal aspects in being both comedic and horrifying. From the start, the movie references its origins of the film Night of the Living Dead. There is a whole shitstorm of how these movies are connected in the real world, but within the context of the movie, they say the events of it were real, but the facts were all twisted around as to not be sued by the US government, lending into their knowledge of the dead to destroy the brain. It shows that people know what zombies are, only for it to defeat the characters and the audience's expectations for the undead to stay alive no matter what you do to them. The living cast in the movie are just as good at the comedy tragedy factor as the undead. They felt like real people, stupid, goofy, and at times with good ideas. Reasoning to destroy the zombie body through a medical waste place to a crematorium is brilliant, but honestly, it playing into it only making it worse, causing the smoke from its burned body to pour into the sky to create acid rain that seeps into the cemetery soil and reanimates the dead. All of the beginning exposition just to be in your face, but also feeling natural, like a natural flow of story. People stupidly fumbling about with something so dangerous and being so clueless about it. For how stupid things can be in its campy nature, there is somewhat realism to it. The two chemical guys of Bert and Freddy slowly turning as paramedics tell them their body temperature is room temperature, and having no heart rate whatsoever really builds up the dead. It has a decent flow laying out the dead and just how deadly they are and how dead they are, with Freddy showing bruises in his back where blood had begun pooling up as he describes his joints aching, all of this being symptoms of a dead body going through rigor mortis. It's creepy, but adds so much flavor to the dead and turning process. Freddy's zombie talks to his girlfriend, trying to get into her head, saying, "It's me, Tina," and messing with her, trying to lure her in, adding layers to the undead for them to speak and reach their ultimate goal of brains. The younger cast all being stereotypes of 80s popular culture teens and adults partying at the cemetery to have the zombie outbreak basically start where they are desecrating the graves, only for their resurrection to have a party anthem. I mean, Chago, play it real quick. With how serious some of the matter is in this, the movie likes to have fun with it. If you were to replace the soundtrack of this film with generic horror elements, you would probably view all of this completely differently. And honestly, the soundtrack is a complete part of the charm. The corny music playing while they barricade the building, the slutty chick turning undead to dance music, to somehow having a Goosebumps mask-looking face, all of this is just an ultimate crash course in the campiness of the 1980s. 1980s. It isn't just another generic horror movie. The camp contained both sight gags and setting. The settings are all perfect for everything involving the undead antagonists. Cemetery, mortuary, crematorium, and even a chapel. The humor is in places like the main company called You Need a Medical Supply, being right across the street from the ironically named Resurrection Cemetery. The outbreak started because of a man's confidence in American Army engineering as he smacked the canister and releasing the chemical. The zombies calling for help to get more flesh, the dismembered zombie with no limbs near the ambulance revealing itself with a scream and running around like a short person. It jolts you, it scares you, but then it makes you laugh. The homeless guy getting eaten by the hoe girl after a sexy montage. The cop zombie pretending to guide his former fellow officers to a horde attack. Comedy balanced with horror is what makes this cult classic so special. The low frame rate as the dead rise to make it more jarring, all culminating in a military advisor acting like he is tech support for fixing the zombie attack by nuking the entire town, ending in Freddy getting in the attic, freezing in frame, as the undead horde with this Marilyn Manson looking girl looking at their impending fate to just get blown away. They're just sitting there staring. The ending is sudden, and honestly, them standing there is hilarious.
Oh, I've wasted my life.
But the fallout of the blast as generals pat themselves on the back for a job well done at finally wiping out the zombies just for us to see the explosion has caused a wider outbreak. And to show that no matter what we do, these busted ass zombies never really die before it reuses old footage from earlier in the film and goes back to the party anthem again. It's the ultimate campy zombie movie and always worth a watch as it gets the number 6 spot on this list. In the second half of this list, for this spot, we have a tie. It was hard to debate where to put both of these movies. Both peak cinema from the godfather of the dead himself. And I just saw his star at the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I even touched the gross ground just to be able to say I've touched that star. And to not just put it up here for what they did for zombie media, as I would be a hypocrite with my opening monologue about how they impacted zombie movies as a whole. But as they are, both of these movies, in my opinion, are equally amazing films that both explore the human psyche when survivors are forced to dwell in the same safe space for too long, deliberating over how to go forward in terms of survival, co-opted with working together. Night of the Living Dead saw its fair share of fantastic moments. The cemetery scene of the siblings goofing around to be attacked by the lumbering zombie, the tall, slack-jawed ghoul chasing Barbara to the ranch house to be cornered in the dark, seeing a mutilated corpse that was even jarring for its time, but more so with how pitch black everything is, only to soon find the Coopers, a couple, and Ben, all mostly unaware of the nightmare being unleashed, with the ghouls slowly amassing outside while their only means of information is an old radio to discern they are indeed dead and this whole epidemic is spreading. Much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre with its frankly hellish sound effects, the guttural tone emanates during the feasting scenes of the undead where it's going that's still creepy to this day. With these depictions having viewers crying, screaming, and even leaving the theater during its original screening in 1968, even though it's pretty tame by today's standards. It still is something that feels embedded in your DNA to feel a sensation of goosebumps run down your back if you really sink in and watch. Everyone dying one by one as they try and either escape or pull themselves deeper into the hole of the house. The explosion of the truck killing the young couple, only for the ghouls to devour their barbecued flesh. The vast horde of zombies walking in the dark, breaking in eventually as Barbara, who has entered more and more of a manic and frankly catatonic state, allows herself to be taken by her undead brother. Mr. Cooper trying to kill Ben in his panicked protective state, only to be killed himself with his wife being slowly stabbed to death by their zombified daughter. Again, the soundtrack and effects just being otherworldly to shiver up the back of your neck. Leading into probably the darkest and most depressing end to any zombie movie. And that's saying something since this is technically the first real zombie movie. The main protagonist being the sole survivor after everyone else died in one way or another, only to hear the sounds of other survivors and to be shot in the head right then and there. More haunting than anything is the newsreels and photos showing his body being hauled off, with men laughing, smiling, and more as they pat each other on the back for a job well done, as they burn the bodies of the dead, never knowing they killed a healthy living man. No sunset, no sunrise. This is a dark tale, and for what it's worth, it is still genuinely uneasy. And really, again, no sunset, no sunrise, only darkness. Day of the Dead took the concepts of night and expanded them to a more wider and frankly brighter tone, with a lot more blood, gore, and a deeper dive into the psyche of both the living and the dead, becoming a wider version of the farmhouse for a condensed and claustrophobic experience to force the survivors to interact and bounce off each other as each day goes by. The opening making for a great gorilla song, seeing the coastal city slowly wake from the dead with zombies walking around after hearing the sounds of the helicopter searching for survivors. It really feels like a world that long followed night and dawn, empty with little hope. Using the same mechanism of having the majority of the film take place indoors, with survivors quarreling with each other, we transform Mr. Cooper wanting to stay within the safety of the house to Captain Rhodes wanting to get out, and abandon the scientists working hopelessly at a cure in the underground military bunker. It's interesting because Day dissects both the living and dead. Night of the Living Dead was more about how people are truly the monsters, you know, that whole shtick, while Land of the Dead observes the living and dead both in the wild. Day of the Dead is about finding out what makes them tick in a controlled environment, and that is through Captain Rhodes, Dr. Bowman, Dr. Logan, and of course Bub. The imagery in this film is probably the most artistic and visually, pretty damn good, with the first scenes being Bowman in the claustrophobic room by herself staring at the calendar as the days continue to be marked away, unable to look at anything else till dozens of undead arms pierce through, grabbing her, depicting her cabin fever mixed with paranoia that the ghouls will eventually find their way in by the droves, but sticking to her guns in order to find a cause for the virus, or maybe even a cure, and hopefully stop it. Captain Rhodes growing impatient with the science team while they make no headway, wanting to take his men and go AWOL to find hope somewhere else, and doing so by force. The cabin fever settling in him in a more destructive way, especially with the fact that they are corralling zombies underground behind a fence to be used for this research, and wasting time and resources to do so. Everyone there is wearing thin, except Dr. Logan being the one true hopeful in the dark, dank military bunkers, speaking with and breaking ground with the undead person, Bub, teaching him how to be a human again, looking at books, shaving, having a glint in his eye, knowing what a gun was, and being excited to be fed like a dog like it was a treat to be human. Bub showing even contempt for Captain Rhodes. Everyone and their state of mind devolve in the direction they begin from, leading to their escape or demise, watching everything slowly simmer until blowing up, all while the dead fester in and out of the compound. All of this builds tension slowly but surely in the best way possible. Dr. Logan had been consistently dissecting random deadites in a grand display of how far practical effects magic had gotten, coming out the same exact year as Return of the Living Dead. That's really ironic that they came out basically in the same summer. The practical effects on display on this movie are quite frankly mind-blowing. Guts spewing out to you, censored on YouTube, sorry you can't really see it, but go check it out. The jawless zombie in the beginning of the film waggling its tongue, the soldiers being brutalized, being the grand display of narrative and practical gore when Rhodes himself is shot by Bub as revenge for his human friend Logan's murder. Rhodes being torn into as his guts are pulled out and his body ripped in half by the horde of undead while he yells choke on him. It's just perfectly encapsulating everything that is about the zombie genre, but making it a damn good viewing experience. George A. Romero originally had stated that he wanted this movie to be the Gone with the Wind for zombie cinema, and after revising his script from 300 pages down to under 90, losing half the budget due to effects and age rating and more, Romero definitely pulled that vision off to some degree, being an excellent crash course into zombie media anatomy, showcasing everything there is to love about a good zombie story. It's not going to be balls to the wall action every step of the way, but getting fully indulged will have you understanding why it's so revered. It really is a good dissection in not only gore and story, but just enjoying a good zombie film. It had long-standing impact to make you think and to make you appreciate the living and dead more, as is the case for Night of the Living Dead, as both take up the number 5 spot on this list. Now hold on, I know what you're thinking. This I can already see having tons of contention, mostly due to the fact that a portion of people do not consider this a zombie movie, even Danny Boyle back in the day. But over time, the Rage Infected and what they did for the zombie genre, and basically what are zombies, have largely shaped a lot in zombie media going forward. I mean, I did a whole video on how they even changed the zombie genre. Take a shot every time I say I made a whole video on this. I dare ya. But yeah, I consider 28 Days Later a zombie film. It's dark, depressing, lonely, dreadful, and has all the key notes of horror that you come to expect. The infected monkey attack gives a glimpse into what kind of antagonistic disease-ridden force is about to be unleashed. Jim's awakening into an empty world to mirror our perspective into this kind of scenario. The shooting of London in the wee hours of the morning with trash sprawled out to really sell the illusion of a devastated Britain. Cillian Murphy screaming, "Hello!" all over the major city, only to be met with his own echo and newspapers detailing the end. It's just powerful. The church scene of the hordes of dead people in the pews, the end is fucking nigh written on the walls, and the infected priest bursting out from the doors as the infected that we thought were dead rising up with the music glooming. It's the most spine-chilling moment for me out of everything in this list. Jim is aided in the darkened environment by two people just for one of them to be quickly executed after being bitten. It shows the suddenness of how the infected attack and how the camera works with their perspective and the confrontation of both sides in split-second edits. Anytime there is a confrontation with these ragers, it is just sporadic and you really cannot get your bearing. It was all more raw thanks to the low-budget nature of the filming, matching the fast-paced and quicksilver behavior that is basically a necessity with how rapid everything is. Now, it does start off slow and has slow parts, that's so we can absorb more of the survivors that are around Jim, but also to contrast the skirmishes with the infected and how they are so agile and how this makes it so agile in editing to make them all more engaging. Having this contrast makes it so impactful. The score is simple, even down to its iconic theme, "In the House in a Heartbeat." While many films have their threats marked with jump scare sounds and music, a lot of the rage encounters are marked just with ambient sound. It's just silence and then blah, making it all more authentic. The infected themselves are portrayed in such a way that it matches their behavior, never truly being on screen for too long with jump cuts, jittery cameras, and only seen for long periods in silhouettes or them preparing to attack, focusing fully on their rapid, rage-filled rip and tear nature. This all basically feels like a nightmare, especially with how dark and shaded and just low quality the camera is. It's because Jim is waking up, and you kind of have a feeling that he never truly woke up, and this is all a nightmare scenario, but that is the reality of it. The virility of the infected and how they rip, tear, and cause the infection to spread so quickly. Jim came into the world alone, but slowly develops a family as he travels from the city to the countryside with Selena, Frank, and Hannah, and he fears returning to that, only for Frank to die abruptly from a freakish chance encounter, and for the safety he sought for them to be one that would put all of them in harm's way at the military-based mansion, turning him into a monster much like the ones of the pandemic. The scenes within the mansion contrast again from the bright road trip to a hell house within the darkness where death and despair are constant, having no salvation even in a heavily armed center where they even chain up infected for fun. It's brutal, a wide trip of rage-inducing emotions for everyone, anything happening on a moment's notice, keeping you on the edge of your seat, unlike certain sequels. Depending on where you watch it or what you prefer, this movie has multiple different endings. So if you prefer the depressing and dark ending of Night of the Living Dead, you can elect to view the original outro of Jim dying and to be left alone in a hospital bed. Or if you can't stand to have negativity in your life, you could do the American ending where he lives and waves down a passing plane. It's truly an unforgettable movie with the most brutal zombie-like denizens amidst a pacing that allows the rage-infected survivors, villains, and even you room to breathe and little room to hold your breath, allowing this bloody 2002 film to reach the number 4 spot on this list. When you discuss what the most iconic zombie movie of all time is, many zombie and horror fanatics alike would point to Romero's 1978 film Dawn of the Dead. Even if you're not a fan of it, there are so many aspects to it that resonate to this day. It's known for the Monroeville Mall, but there is more to it beyond that. It understands a world reacting to the largest wave of the undead pandemic, showing a television station panic to understand the severity of the global situation, arguing back and forth before everyone abandons ship despite being relatively safe. Linear to this are the projects or housing raids that have police and civilians alike struggling to cope with the reality of it all. Black and Latino residents opening fire on the law enforcement over martial law orders of surrendering their dead, causing the first conflicts of the film to be gunfights amongst the living, leading to a cop offing himself, shooting the undead and battling if it's right to do so, and the woman being bitten by her reanimated lover, flesh and all, eventually getting to the basement to see that they were sheltering the dead all along in what was basically a death pit of body bags and cannibalistic buffets. The redneck militia and the army banding together to hunt the dead for sport and having to kill the 2 kid zombies being what really things would be like. Although not much of this film is compromised of this, just these 2 separate perspectives of life devolving to the undead captures that energy well. The foursome of Peter, Fran, Steven, and Roger reaching the mall for the film to go hog wild with Romero's favorite thing about zombie media, using them and their films to tackle underlying elements of then modern and still modern society. In this film's case, capitalism, materialism, and the human condition. It really resonates so goddamn well with just encounters and scenes in the film. The zombies flocking to the mall as Ken Foree's character says they aren't there to come and eat them, but because the undead are reminded of the thing that they flock to most in life, to go buy and shop. The beacon of life for so many people. Funny how they became almost bewildered and less of a threat when walking within the walls of the mall as if they became stiff ragdolls. While a damn good fortress with decent supplies, it shows that our survivors are just like the dead, following what is most familiar and, in a way, shooting themselves in the foot, especially when bikers come knocking down the doors to raid the place just for fun and anarchy. Both raids of the projects and the mall are also perfect for showing off the trademark force of the genre. That is the practical effects, the gore, the amounts of blood and makeup and everything else. We have heads exploding, flesh being ripped apart, bullets popping the bodies and heads of others, screwdrivers to the head to make corny blood pull out of the ear, the machete to the zombie head via Tom Savini's character as if the person was made of cake, the bikers being ripped to guts and all, and who could forget the severed arm in the blood pressure machine. That was a sight gag that could only be done within this genre. There is no lack of gory goodness that supersedes even even some gore of today just for how well the practical effects and how they are used are. Which, side note, the contrast of the pale grayish blue skin of the dead with the overly bright red blood is so cheesy, but honestly it works so well visually. The blue tint of the undead accentuates the coldness of their dead bodies as the life of the bright red blood leaves their corpses, or for them to try and consume that very bright red blood that is life. It feels like even the flesh of the dead in this film were thought about heavily to have an artistic vision, where even magazine reviewers like Cinefantastique back in the 70s described the gore and horror as a form of art. Romero and his effects gurus understood this well, even down to the soundtrack and filming. It all served a purpose. The quiet melody of forebodingness as Peter utters the words of, "When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth." God, no matter how old this movie gets, that line still reverberates in your soul. There's a certain magic to these films of yesteryear that make them more grounded, but also don't take everything too seriously. As if film wasn't set in stone of how thematics should be. While there are certainly parts that would make you laugh for how goofy it can be, it's not shy to say that, well, it would be like that. As stated before, comedy and tragedy are parts of the same coin. The zombies are considered this end-of-the-world threat, yet in most of what they are shown, they are just mindless idiots droning on through their existence, which of course is a recurring gag on how George A. Romero views the general populace. Hell, even the one-off sight gag of the zombie getting the top of its head lopped off by the helicopter blades served originally as foreshadowing within the script of the movie, where the original ending of Dawn of the Dead was going to have the last two survivors unable to escape via helicopter and then choosing to off themselves to prevent a worse fate, with Peter shooting himself and then Fran walking intentionally into the helicopter blades to be killed, turning a comedic horror scene from earlier in the film into an extremely depressing one. The bikers coming in only to cause havoc and getting themselves killed is hilarious, but people can be that stupid to let pride and just arrogance get them killed. The infection and reanimation process being both saddening and enlightening as we see both Roger and Flyboy both become undead. One to show off his reanimation into an iconic scene as the rest of everyone else watch television personalities on TV from earlier still bickering over the conditions of the world and what should be done as they are safe, and the rest of us can only watch the horrors outside television's bubble of safety. Then we go to Steven, who succumbs to his bite from earlier in the elevator just to jolt the audience to his new persona when the doors reopen. He is undead, coming full circle of Peter's notion of the undead retaining what they revered most: safety, familiarity, and a home, leading to Flyboy Steven to lead a horde of ghouls to their hidden safe house and spiral everything downwards, usually all set to the dorkiest music imaginable. The mall music takes over what would usually be creepy or horror-focused soundtracks to a familiar drone-like theming of what is generally heard in these shopping environments. That instrumental of the polka song The Gonk playing at the end of the movie as everyone is dead or undead as they wander the mall is just eerie, as if the mindless music you never pay attention to in these environments is now all you can hear after the dead have won. Usually when you think of iconic soundtracks in horror movies, you think of something that gets down to the bone or reverberates in your soul. But when you think of Dawn of the Dead, all you can think of is dun 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 dun. Why? Well, it's because everything has a purpose within this movie. The music, characters, score, setting, it's all just a masterpiece that earns Romero's best film the number 3 spot on this list. The battle for the number 1 spot was brutal. The zombie genre has already had some mega contenders. Originally, the number 2 spot here was at the top of the crop, purely for how well its characters are portrayed, how the flow of the film is non-stop action that is paced well with slow moments that really get to your heart, and how its zombies as a mega threat serve multiple purposes in the film, but also mostly take a backseat on the train to Busan. This was the first film I ever reviewed as a perfect zombie film. When I first watched it in 2019, I was blown away for how caught off guard I was. I was not expecting this experience. Starting as a waste disposal thing, showing an infected deer, hinting at something big, do we just see a business dude taking his daughter home to Busan to his ex-wife? Along the way, does all hell break loose in the claustrophobic halls of the train? The one infected girl getting on board is invisible to the passive nature of South Korean culture. The zombies themselves cracking, veiny and bitey with faded eyes pouring in almost immediately upon departure just from one source. It's like taking the World War Z plane scene and putting it on steroids with a whole lot more substance when it comes to the undead, when it comes to the people, and just how the movie is in general. When shit hits the fan, they basically become a force of nature, almost like a flood, making their one and done bite to turn all the more frightening as most of the film takes place in the train and its few destination points. The characters all taking passage on the vehicle are all exceptionally well written. The Chad dad and his pregnant wife, the homeless man that everyone avoids because of his appearance and mental state, the baseball team member and his girlfriend, the elderly sisters looking down on everyone, the selfish businessman willing to sacrifice any and everyone and change the narrative to save his own ass, and more. So many moving pieces that are integral just to the core dynamic of Sakwoo and his daughter. Sakwoo having been selfish his whole life in his own regard, neglecting everyone but himself, even his own daughter, just to get ahead financially, going from that and transforming throughout the movie as he interacts with these other characters. All of Sakwoo's internal struggles as a person and a father has him combating how to keep his daughter safe, often putting her in harm's way for others to take the mantle of saving her. The movie uses its undead in probably the most suspenseful manner out of any film on this list, but not to the degree like something like World War Z, where it's just it's so shallow. It's a big ocean, but it's shallow, if you know what I mean. It's not just the summer action blockbuster. Previously discussing them as a force of nature, any interaction with these rage-infected, on rigor mortis-laced crack is straight up insane. The horde pluming out towards the group in the claustrophobic train, the scenes of precariously going around the undead in the dark while they are incapacitated is stressful as we see them recoil at losing sight in the dark. Arriving at the train station only for a soldier to ask for help and then get swarmed as everyone has to panic back on the battle bus to get away. And of course, the hundreds of dead attacking the last single train car attempting to escape while holding on like a colony of ants. But amongst the horror and chaos of these forms of the zombie is the core feature of this film's frame and body, its heart, its development. No other zombie movie made me cry as much as this one did, nor have me screaming over having a character die. It makes characters you enjoy, you relate with, you hate and understand. You're rooting for them to live or die. You're hoping they live, and that makes the suspense so much more suspenseful. Chad Dad's sacrifice as he tells his wife what name he wants for the baby after all of this debate of them going back and forth. God damn, just seeing him turn, oh my god. The young couple both dying by the actions of the rich asshole, only for the boy to cry over her turning body to be bitten and die himself. Maddeningly sad. And then, shit man, the commentary on society as a whole, no matter the part of the world. The scared masses flocking to the weak-minded but successful businessman, only to all be torn apart as he runs away in the end, is powerful for everyone that shunned the manic homeless man to see that he was one of the only people willing to lay down his life to save others. Ultimately, everyone dying on the journey to Busan except for the businessman, and imbuing in Sakwu what it means to be a father, fighting the turned businessman as a scared little boy turned monster he is, getting bitten in turn and having to lay down his own life so that his daughter and the pregnant woman may get to safety. The suspense of the movie has been so well written, and we don't know who might die since so many characters that we enjoyed have been passed on, have been killed so many before, even having you think that at the end, while his daughter is singing Aloha Lo, that his daughter might be gunned down by the frightful Korean military. It is a depressing movie, but it's an action ride through and through that scares the hell out of you and has tears making waterfalls. It understands narrative structure, character dynamic, and how to use the zombies in a perfect way as a vehicle for the living themselves. A lot of other zombie movies on this list use the zombies to be kind of a mirror, but here they are just this force of nature that is going against what the characters are trying to do, and that is survive. I know the irony in saying it's a vehicle considering the name of the film. It has resonated so well with all reaches of the world that us in America decided to do what we do best, repackaging it with some red, white, and blue as a remake of it set in the US with a focus on fucking New York. Yeah, despite trains not being a predominant source for travel in the United States, being dubbed Last Train to New York. But it shows that it's just that good that we have to pull that crap. Despite not even being 10 years old, Train to Busan, and with how Sakwu is in transforming, going against the undead against insurmountable odds over and over just to let his little girl survive and become a different man while learning from every other character along the way. There isn't a lot of gore, and there's not a lot of it that would be usual within the zombie genre, but it shines through with how unique it is, earning it the number 2 spot on this list. But to who? The peak of zombie comedy. I will never contend that anything will be better in this regard. Edgar Wright did his homework with Simon Pegg, understanding that there is depth to what you can do with the dead. Unlike Return to the Living Dead, they focused on making the horror and comedy blend seamlessly in a way that makes it beyond just a cult classic, that works in conjunction with its inspirations and uses parallels and foreshadowing to such a well-executed degree that it makes rewatching it a treat just to catch even the most subtle of character actions, imagery, and more. Most of all, ironically following the original Dawn of the Dead on this list, Shaun of the Dead did its homework again on everything that is zombies and Romero's work to make a perfect movie experience for both fans of horror, zombies, and comedy, appealing to everybody on all these sides of the aisle. While zombies and other films are just hinted at being a mirror to our mindless lives, Shaun of the Dead is in your face from the beginning, having a montage set to I, Monsters, Blue Wrath, showing countless people drolfully going on about their day. The use of music is both natural and even diegetic. The soundtrack works its best to be a cult classic without being overtly try-hard about it. Shaun and Ed singing white lines to a then unknown to them zombie, singing back vocals, and the bar fight scene perfectly syncing to Queen's Don't Stop Me Now. It's entertaining to watch, but also, again, treating repeat watches as just about every living person at the beginning, when it's talking about the drolful day of their zombie-like lives, returns as an actual zombie at some point in time, all leading into Shaun's day-to-day life. Stuck in a dead-end job, not knowing where he is going with his living portion of life, not pushing to do more except piss about with Ed and game, or taking his girlfriend Liz to the Winchester. Dude is basically dead, so oblivious to this fact that he can't see the hints of the zombie apocalypse that are being sprinkled about everywhere he goes, serving to be both ominous in the dead trying to eat birds and random people keeling over from being bitten, and to be being stupidly funny when TV channels being flipped through piece together that civilians are being eaten alive on the streets of London, introducing us as well to each of the people in the film. The characters all have their time to shine, and dialogue that makes just about all of them memorable and funny as hell and relatable. The comedy is not just a thing to make them caricatures to force some giggles with forced lines from an actor. They are not just people that are there to be characters. They are people. We derive entertainment from them through natural conversations and reactions. Ed's carefree, laser stoner nature being relaxed and at times combative with the goal of surviving, David constantly undermining Shaun because of his redirected love, only to get murked by some zombies later on, Diane, the failed actress, teaching others how to be dead, Liz being the second in command, trying to do better for everyone, Shaun's mum staring blankly when asked to be like a zombie, Shaun's stepdad being a prick that silently walks up to scare Shaun and us, only being an ass throughout Shaun's life to straighten him up to do better, in which Shaun and Ed are completely fine with. It plays into this comical thing of everyone that has somebody in their life they're like, yeah, I wouldn't mind them dying, until the stepdad admits that he loves Shaun to only die and change how Shaun thinks about him and his own situation as a whole. Because of this, when some of these characters do get bitten, die, and reanimate, it makes their deaths so much more impactful. There is not a wasted survivor death in this movie. Shaun's mom coming back from the dead, honestly, this shit right here, this scene alone of her opening her eyes beats out a lot of zombie movies for how sad, horrific, and when she gets popped in the head, brutal it is. Ed farting one last time as he says his goodbyes to Shaun as he bleeds out and waves to him goodbye. It's just so good. Even David, even though his death is not tear-jerking, him getting eviscerated in the most gory way possible as he is literally ripped limb from limb to an equal or even worse degree to Captain Rhodes from Day of the Dead. It's to show off how gory the zombies can be and how that this is indeed a zombie movie with a focus on horror. Each death is not just nameless character fodder. When someone dies in this film, you feel it, whether it's tugging your heartstrings or wrenching your gut. When you feel like there is growth, they are snubbed, and that growth symbolically transfers to Shaun in what his transformation from the dead to being alive thanks to everyone around him. Which, on the note of gore, there are some classic examples that really up the ante in blood sport. While not as frequent as a Romero film or giblet fest of many zombie games that we play on the market to this day, the parts that we do get show that there was love and passion on the level of Tom Savini put into this craft. But what about the undead? We spoke volumes about the people. The zombies themselves.
Don't say that. What? That? What? That? The Z word. Don't say it. Why not? Because it's ridiculous.
Sorry, Shaun, or Zedwoods, all have personality based purely on their outward appearance and each time they do appear. Since it is a zombie comedy, slapstick and gorer have to play their part. The one zombie getting run over to have Shaun slowly stop and ask if he is okay, only for them to be relieved as it shows its undead status. Beating the shit out of the zombie bar owner with random shit that they find lying around, flinging records at the backyard zombies to no avail till they just beat the shit out of them with the shovel and the iconic cricket bat. Despite being without mostly any actions and no words whatsoever, the diverse depictions of the undead and where they are placed makes each encounter spring to life just a bit more. The zombies play their part exceptionally well. not noticing obviously living people purely because they pretend to be dead to poke fun at the medium. That's all it took all this time. The zombies allowing Shaun and Ed to have a lover's quarrel, to just stare at the group for an oh shit moment. The grocery store worker girl being impaled after being mistaken for purely being a drunk. The tuxedo zombie with an arm off, just to make one line so dorkily funny, I always quote it to this day. Oh, he's got an arm off! Hell, even background zombies tend to stick out so much. What other movie can you think of where just background zombies keep appearing and you can remember them so well? I mean, think about it, like the big fat bald twin zombies, or the fat black kid with his eyes widened out in the awkward silent scene. Shit, there's even a wheelchair zombie one in there somewhere. There are so many recurring zombies that if you look back to the beginning of the movie, it's so cool to see when you have these familiar characters zombify. They show off their chops with vicious appearance, fogged out eyes, and more. As stated before, every zombie we see is one particularly seen at some point in the film. Like the kid zombie that's kicking around the soccer ball, we see him again, but Shaun doesn't notice, lending into the best strength of Shaun of the Dead. Parallels, having the most minuscule or obvious scenes, actions, dialogue, or more, always coming back as if from the dead to treat the audience and use them to depict the transformation of the living to dead, and in Shaun's case, the dead to living, because this is Shaun of the Dead. Having two morning scenes be nearly the same, just with, hints of zombie apocalypse. Though if you have them side by side and watch them, it's just so cool. It's a masterclass in filmmaking for how simple it seems, but really pulling it off is just really cool. It's a love letter to the love of not only zombies, but movies in general. Even imitating action scenes in action movies, do we have crash zooms on the simplest of things to fake out how the most mundane actions can be made into something spectacular just through the scope of the camera and the power of editing. The movie is all about transition, and in the midst of it, it completely aces the exam on making a funny as hell, thought-provoking gore fest that anyone can enjoy. Everything. The characters, the soundtrack, the practical effects, the editing, dialogue.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Making sure every scene was memorable and rewatchable to always give you something new that you never caught before if you just pay a little bit more attention each time. Dialogue with timeless catchphrases and lines. Dogs can look up. How's that for a slice of fried gold? Exacerbating things and more. Earlier I said that this is peak zombie comedy, but because it's a comedy, it can both not take itself so seriously, but also accentuate parts to really ramp it up. So honestly, it's a peak zombie movie. It uses the medium to its best advantages. It uses its inspirations and really goes to town with them. So kick back, relax, have a nice cold pint, and know that Shaun of the Dead definitively retains the #1 spot in the top 10 zombie films of all time. Sorry, Wild Sedge Gaming, I'ma let you finish, but Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is the best zombie film of all time.
Yes, it's terror time again. Oh, you just might die of fright. It's a terrifying time.
So with that, here is the final list of our top 10 zombie movies of all time. Now, keep this in mind, this is my opinion again. You can agree, you can disagree, you can agree to disagree. I'd love to know what you would have considered to be on this list. The zombie genre is one I hold near and dear to my heart for the connection I had to my uncle and also how much it changed my life. Is there something I should have considered or omitted for this top 10? Should we do the same thing with zombie TV shows, or maybe even do a list of the top 5 zombie movies that tried a little too hard to be the best? Let me know down below. Big thanks to Chaga for editing this video together, and shout out to my Patreon patrons and YouTube channel members for donating to keep the channel going. You can be featured on this list here by just chipping in $1 in any way you can. Do it, and you can also see some of my videos up to a week early. And if you want to support the channel even further and get some goodies along the way, click my Gamer Subs link in the description. I'm trying to get a Left 4 Dead inspired flavor for Gamer Subs and a waifu witch cup made, so the more sales I make, the better chance that those things happen. So use code WOW at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Again, let me know down below what you believe should be in this top 10 list, if you agree, disagree, or agree to disagree. Until next time, I'm Zach S, aka Wow Such Gaming. Never forget to stay happy, stay healthy, stay loving zombies, but not in the philia way, and most importantly, stay wow.